Good afternoon, everyone. Continue to enjoy your food and interacting with each other. I just want to welcome you to our first Campus Climate in Review luncheon. So welcome. It's really my pleasure to welcome you all, and I'm honored and excited to host this very important and enriching event. I had a moment to speak with Dr. Trinidad, and he was asking me, he said, "Are you nervous?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, that's good. You do a lot of these." And I said, "Well, yes, I do. But actually, I'm a little nervous. And the reason I'm nervous is because, just a little bit, because it keeps you sharp. And he told me it keeps you honest too. So I think it's good to be a little nervous. But I'm also very relaxed because y'all are my people, okay? And I'm so happy that you're here. To begin our event, I would like to invite Virginia Aguilar, President of the American Indian Student Alliance and Student Representative on the President's Inclusive Excellence Advisory Council, to lead us in the land acknowledgement. Virginia?
Miriam Notung Virginia Ka, non Bomangai, P. Agua Caliente, Band of Queen Indians. Hi, my name is Virginia. I come from the Palma Band of Luceño Indians and Agua Caliente, Band of Queen Indians, and I'll be providing the land acknowledgement today. CSUSM acknowledges that the land on which we gather in today is the traditional territory of the Luceño Payonkwichem people. CSUSM and its surrounding areas are still home to the 6 federally recognized bands of the La Jolla, Paula, Palma, Pachanga, Rincon, Saboba, Luceño, Payonkwichem people. It is also important to acknowledge that this land remains the shared space amongst the Cupeño Wichem, Cupeño, and Kumeyaay and Ipais people. Non Novik, thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. Okay. I want to pause just for a moment and ask you to just look around and see who's here with you. What areas are being represented? I'm sure you see some friends, folks that you've worked with for a while, teammates, perhaps, just wonderful people. And you represent the core of what our campus climate has to offer. Every single one of you. You are the ones that make the difference. My reporting teammates are Ariel Stevenson, Dr. Richard Armenta, Cheryl Landon, and Dominique Harrison. They're the ones that represent different areas that you all work in and some of the work that has happened over the course of your time here. We're going to offer a snapshot of strategic efforts over the past 10 years, what actions have been taken since the last Campus Climate Survey, where we are today, and where we're headed. I realize many of you have an invested interest in how we interact with our experience here in our CSUSM community. Attitudes and behaviors, standards, practices all impact individuals' needs, abilities, and their potential, and how we realize our experience at CSUSM. Those attitudes are tracked over time, and they provide insights to experiences and patterns that we pay attention to. Those patterns help inform us of the work that we need to do when it comes to improving how we're experiencing each other and how we're experiencing the campus. Impacting campus climate is a collective effort. That means all of us, right? It doesn't matter if you work on policy, if you work with programs, if you are frontline, or if you're behind the scenes, if you're a faculty member, if you're a student leader. The role of OI&E and IP&A is to inform you all of these actions and activities. The process for developing the CSUSM campus climate efforts took shape and form under my leadership by forming work groups intentionally designed to consider these patterns and help our community understand the range of perspective and embrace those different perspectives and partner with you and impact change. I would like to ask our current work group members to please stand and be acknowledged. If you are part of the campus climate work groups, please stand and be acknowledged. These are some of our leaders. I would like to just say thank you for your service and continuing to serve. I'd also like to welcome new work group members. And for those of you that are here, I'm going to ask you to please stand or wave if you're already standing and be acknowledged. Okay. So how do you get involved in participating as a work group member? We have extended past invitations through the President's Inclusive Excellence Advisory Council. We've made special calls for faculty representation via Academic Senate, their executive cabinet. We've provided open invitations through messages and communication via email and outreach. So anyone that may be interested in supporting this work in a more group-oriented manner, please stay tuned and we'll be sure to share further information for the future. At this time, I'd like to welcome my Deputy Diversity Officer, R.L. Stevenson, who will share a snapshot of strategic campus efforts that we've taken over the past 10 years. Please join me in welcoming R.L.
I need help. This little one, the big green one. Okay. So I'm here to share some historical information about campus climate, but I also think it's just important to, along the way, share some maybe socio-political context as we move through. I think it's important to note that before we even start talking about our 10-year look back, that the work of inclusive excellence, diversity, social justice has been at Cal State San Marcos for a long time. It had its origins in the Educational Equity Task Force that was formed by the previous president around 2005 and 2006. And I would be remiss not to mention Dr. Gary Rollison. May he rest in peace. He was appointed to the position of Special Assistant to the President for Educational Equity and Diversity. Dr. Rollison at that time served in the role on a half-time basis. So I know some colleagues from sociology are here. I was one of his students. I got into this work specifically because I was a master's student. There was no office, there was no space, and he was working to create that with campus constituents that formed this Educational Equity Task Force. So we always acknowledge our original work or how we got here in order to understand where we are and where we're going. I think that's important to know. He started that work on a half-time basis. We did not hire the first person to lead the work for the office until spring 2011, and that title of that person was the Associate Vice President for Diversity and Educational Equity. So we went from a special assistant to the president, right, on a half-time basis, to having our first inaugural person in spring 2011 on a full-time basis, but as our first associate vice president, important to note. In 2012, CSU had approved its first strategic plan for diversity and educational equity. That's important because people think that the DIS, the Diversity Inclusion Strategic Plan, was the first plan, but there was a plan that that came before the DIS. What's important that helped to gather the work forward was that the chancellor of the California State University system issued the Executive Order 1097 on June 3rd, 2014. That is when the system committed to maintaining an inclusive community that values diversity and fosters tolerance and mutual respect as we think about how we embrace and encourage our different communities. It talked about age, disability, race, ethnicity, gender identity or expression, nationality, religion, sexual orientation, genetic information, veteran or military status, and other characteristics that make our community unique. What was also unique to the CSU was the different aspects of social economic status, such as our first generation students, our former foster youth students, and our citizenship status. During that time, once the system-wide executive order was established, we were able to do some due diligence with Halalani and Associates, and they did our diversity mapping for CSUSM. That started in the late spring 2014 through 2015, and we were able to assess diversity in the curriculum as well as diversity throughout the university. That report was completed in 2015, and it had extensive recommendations, and we were committed to moving forward, and that's the same time that we started that we did our work around the DLE, our Diversity Learning Environment Survey in 2015. We conducted the survey that helped measure the experiences of our students. We had the mapping report, and from that, we began a different effort around strategic planning, which then the DIS, the Diversity Inclusion Strategic Plan, was launched. Okay? I think that's just important to note because we talk about these things as if they're just one thing that happened. We had an executive order that was formed. We had somebody move from being an assistant to the president for the work on a half-time basis. We had our original inaugural person as the AVP for the work. And so then we moved to this diversity and inclusion plan. And that time, although the plan helped the campus move forward, there were various changes to the office. Who remembers the people that helped lead the work of inclusive excellence, right? Before there was Dr. Allen, there were 9 different people, 2 of them only being full-time diversity officers. The rest were at an interim status, whether they were administrators or other faculty members, helping to just bring the work forward so that we can continue change incrementally. And then I was just in the background trying to be the continuity to make sure that we're moving the work forward until we got a full-time person. Oh no, that wasn't for me. I was just saying, right? That wasn't. This is what happens when you're doing your memory timeline. So from that time, from the DIS, when we had those different people leading, we also still had the diversity inclusion plan, which was giving us instructions to move forward. That plan it was excellent with our community help, but it had some caveats, right, Cameron? Yes, it had some caveats. And I say that because I was working with Cameron. Cameron was leading. There were President Neufeld came to campus in 2019. When she came to campus, she charged 3 work groups. 2 were dedicated for the work of inclusive excellence. One being very specific in staffing and resources for the Office of Inclusive Excellence. And so I was a convener of that work along with Dr. Dreama Moon and Allison Carr. Allison, raise your hand in the back, right? Because we needed to talk about what did it mean to do this work at the level that it needed to be at in order to do these efforts strategically across the university. During that time, we administered another DLE per President Haynes, and that was focused on making an impact. That was our theme. I'm looking at Dominique. Yes, that's right. Yes. And so When we administered that survey, it was the first concerted effort for the entire campus. Concerted effort. It was not the first survey. I just want to be very clear. It was the first concerted effort of all faculty, staff, students, and administrators. So the students did the DLE again for our longitudinal reference and work. And then our administrators, staff, and faculty took the viewfinder survey, right? Noting that time frame as you're following along this time on the screen. Year 2022 was super robust with campus efforts, including our campus-wide strategic plan, as it had been some time since the university had a new plan. So under the previous president, we had a strategic plan, but we've had a lot of change, right? We also launched our campus climate website with many summary reports for faculty, staff, students, and administrators, dashboards, infographics. We asked people to also document their activities and how they're utilizing their campus climate, utilizing the campus climate results for their efforts going forward, which I think is important to note. Our institution did, although this is our first Campus Climate and Review Forum luncheon, there was a previous one that we held for the first time. It wasn't a luncheon because it was during COVID, it was our Campus Climate Forum. So I just want to note that we started to institutionalize, like connecting the work of the surveys, elevating the work of the role, positioning the office, making our efforts more comprehensive. In that time, we also started our unit action planning work with our DEI facilitators and our Cougar teams for the Accelerating Inclusive Excellence at CSUSM to prepare for the DEI inventory. And so that was done alongside of the Center for Strategic Diversity Leadership and Social Innovation with Dr. Damon Williams, literally the person who wrote the book on organization of the work of inclusive excellence, on what it means to be a chief diversity officer, partnering with the American Colleges and Associations, AAC, American Colleges, Universities, I'm forgetting y'all, AAC&U. It'll come to me. So definitely not only determining the work, full work for our campus, but working with somebody that was determining the work for our campus, but someone who had expertise in what the work should look like going forward. From that work, a report that is also available to you called Staying the Course basically was produced with recommendations we made that we made sure to make available to our community, including all of the work that we did from the mapping, right? They had that information from the very beginning, any past efforts. We knew to our community the DISP and that work. We knew how much that work and that foundational work was important to informing our partnership and what it meant to move forward with our campus doing campus climate work. The work with the Center for Strategic Diversity Leadership and Social Innovation was necessary because we had not had a plan in almost 9 years. A lot of folks were like, why are we doing this again? And we had to spend time reminding people that it was almost 9 years that we had a plan. And in that time, we had new leadership, we had new PAT members, we had a new president, right? The mapping was excellent work and the DISP was excellent work, but there were also, that work lacked measures, right? We did not have a baseline understanding at that time of what it meant to integrate the work across the university. The DEI inventory work helped us not only identify what we had across the campus, but it also helped us to think about what we could or should think about in different ways. It helped us determine what degree our efforts that we do around inclusive excellence as a campus, how are we thinking about them being evidence-informed or evidence-based? How are we thinking about outcomes and areas of impact, right? Like we're not just doing programs or initiatives without any measures of degree of evidence, which was super important. And then how are we collectively doing the work as a campus to move forward? I think that is important to note because in the Helani report, originally it said that we were doing diversity and social justice work all over the place and not in an organized way. And so, bless you. And so as we move forward, that led to a lot of our more campus actioning work, right? So with the recommendations from our partners, with Dr. Williams' group, we were able to position our campus actioning work group, right? Moving from a steering committee of like thinking about the work of like, what does it mean to be partner in the work in your schools and colleges? And from that, we created some subcommittees that were informed by the recommendations that focused on training, focuses on infrastructure, and then the opportunity to just share the responsibility of inclusive excellence because it does not belong to one office, right? The responsibility is a shared responsibility for our campus. So I know that was a little bit longer than expected. But I think it's important. Historical, social, and political context is important. Even during the time when we had our Making an Impact survey with our concerted effort of the university, what was happening? COVID was happening. There was multiple pandemics happening. And so understanding that context as we do campus climate work is very important. Okay, so next slide here. Okay. So what has changed in the last 10 years? Elevating the role of CDO to the cabinet level. So when we had that convening group to say, like, we had experience understanding what it meant to only be a special assistant and an AVP of the work and not have it be directly connected to our executive cabinet was important. Having a CDO that has been consistent for the last 4 years, having 9 different people in 10 years is not ideal for a lot of progress and understanding of the work. Understanding what it means to move from philosophy to action. The DIS had a lot of like dreaming forward and what we're doing around activity in a philosophical way, but not a lot of active ways of accountability and measures of impact. And then understanding the strategic integration of inclusive excellence and their principles. A lot of the work when we were working with our different departments and our units as they're building their strategic plans that are integrating inclusive excellence are very clear on, and we are very clear on what it means for them and the work that they do to integrate inclusive excellence principles. And then also, different colleges have established diversity committees. I even just today, the Student Health and Counseling Services told me that they're establishing their DEIB. Is that correct? So, and they're here, right? And so understanding in your different units what that means as we're doing the integration work from our DEI inventory. So we understand what's happening across campus, what's specific to your school, and that people have a hand in what that means going forward for the work. Okay. Just one minute. That's my time.
Okay, thank you, Ariel. You always give such a wonderful overview. I feel like, what else do I have to add? Hopefully I have more. So my name is Cheryl Landon. I'm the Director of Strategic Initiatives for the Office of Inclusive Excellence. I use she, her pronouns. I'm going to be talking to you about what has happened since the last concerted survey administration Ariel just spoke about in spring of 2021. Before I really go into it, though, I do want to go back to what Ariel mentioned in terms of our survey committee that was established to help inform which instruments we were going to be using at the time. It consisted of faculty, administrators, staff, and students, and many of us up here on the stage were a part of those efforts, including myself. And I remember the students saying to us, it's really important for us, if we're gonna take time to take the survey, to know what's being done with the information we're giving you. So we really tried to approach the work from there with the foundational principles of transparency, accountability, and inclusive participation. So hopefully you see that when I share with you what's been done since that last survey administration. All right. Can everyone read this right now? Just kidding. So there's a reason why I put this snapshot in here. It's not my favorite visual, but I wanted to just emphasize this snapshot you're seeing is directly from the reports posted on our Campus Climate website. You see it down here, csusm.edu/equity/climate. It's from the executive report, and it's the recommendations we put forth at the time based on the data that were collected. So you're not gonna see data, which is unusual for me because I'm usually up here giving you numbers, which I still will, but you won't see those actual numbers up on the screen. You can access all of that, including all of the dashboards where you can drill down into different populations on that website. So if you haven't seen it already, that's been available since fall of 2021. So when we look at the recommendations, we took some of these overarching themes that were extracted from it, one of them being DEI, sorry, I thought I'd have the presentation in front of me, so I'm going to look back awkwardly. DEI professional development. That recommendation came in part from data collected from faculty, staff, and administrators, in which over a third of them were either neutral or disagree that they received adequate diversity training in order to properly prepare them to engage with students and employees on campus. So we took that as a finding as well. We wanted to bring forth and start thinking about what actions we could come up with around that. The next category you'll see is addressing microaggressions, bias, and discrimination. A third of staff and administrators reported experiencing microaggressions in their department. For faculty, that was higher at almost 50%. The instruments for the students and employees were slightly different, so the questions were a little different. Over 1 in 4 students reported witnessing or experiencing discrimination at Cal State San Marcos. So that was where that recommendation came from for both of those surveys. The next category we're looking at, which is safe and supportive environments for expressing views and identities, came from when students were asked about their level of satisfaction with Cal State San Marcos in various areas. 57% were satisfied with the atmosphere for religious differences, and only 55% were satisfied with the atmosphere for political differences. For employees combined, less than half of employees felt that they were comfortable expressing their religious views, and that same percentage applied for political views, which is especially important to note during this time where we're entering into an election season. So I think that's something we've been considering and thinking about over the past few years since those data were made available. And finally, we're looking at the final recommendation from here, not that it's the only one, but including diverse viewpoints and perspectives. So again, that emerged from that foundational principle that we discussed as a committee, but also there were certain populations, in particular American Indian, Alaska Native, and Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islanders, where we didn't receive enough data to be able to report on. So we wanted to think about how can we, outside of the survey, continue to collect those perspectives as well as others that were underrepresented throughout the time when we're thinking about campus climate activities. Okay, so I'm going to let you know this is not an all-encompassing list of all the things that have happened at Cal State San Marcos. I'm sure many of you know of things that have occurred that help with DEI professional development. I see Tony Shields is here. I'm sure you have a lot more to add than what's on the screen, but these are some of the things that we here as part of the Campus Climate Action Work Group are involved in. So that's where this list came from, but I invite you to definitely let us know if there are others we want to think about. The items in white are things that have existed prior to the last survey administration, so we're not saying that these emerged from the survey results, but again, a lot of us are involved in these efforts and we're constantly thinking of ways to bring in campus climate survey data into those conversations. The things in blue are new since that last administration. So the Leadership Academy, CSU's cross-campus collaboration, DEIA training, mindfulness for diversity and inclusive workshops out of the Center for Contemplative Practices, who are here today. That center notably is led by Dr. Ranjita Basu, who was the interim CDO at the time and also piloted the center as a faculty fellow for the Office of Inclusive Excellence. And then these are 2 brand new ones. Again, there's tables here about this EQUIP training and 21-day equity challenges. So I invite you, as you're thinking about, if you want to engage in more DEI training, talk to your supervisors about bringing these activities into your professional development plans, and make sure others in your areas are aware of them, because I think part of it is that people maybe aren't aware of all of the opportunities available to them to receive DEI training. Oops, did I go too far? No, okay. And then addressing microaggressions, discrimination, or bias. Again, the white items are things that have existed. The blue were new ones. The Timely Public Incident Response Task Force, which Dr. Allen led. Other Conduct of Concern Work Group, which is the next step in that process. And then the Culture of Care Task Force. So these are items that are responsive, but also knowing that, again, with DEI training and some of these other activities, we're trying to think of ways where we can be more proactive and provide opportunities for people to self-reflect on their own biases and their own ways in which they may be doing things that are discriminatory or biased, and how we can prevent that as a campus community. And then I'm going to hand it over to Ariel for the next categories.
Yes, and I'm gonna be very quick. So opportunities for a safe and supportive environment for expressing views and ideas. We have our faculty and staff associations, and some of them are here at the table right alongside the wall, so raise your hand. We also have our civility campaign on campus that has been with us for some time, I think since about 2014, 2015. The Inclusive Excellence Advisory Council, although it's in white, the council before was the Diversity Council, and so it's been elevated where the CDO and the president lead that together. And then everything in blue around bridging differences with mindful dialogue workshops, our difficult dialogues learning community, and then the Expect Respect campaign right over here, the first table. Raise your hand, Mike, for more information. So the tables in the back are a lot of these opportunities to connect so you can know more about it. In addition, we have our Including Diverse Viewpoints and Perspectives, our conversations with the CDO. Many of you have participated in our Luncheon on Strategies, Faculty and Staff series. We've just had our Campus Mobility Access Committee reporting to Pat where we are with our progress, and then a lot of the other things that are in blue that are newer, but ongoing work that we cannot do without partnership from across the campus.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Richard Armenta. I have several roles on campus, but I'm talking in my faculty fellow role at the Office of Inclusive Excellence, and just going to share a little bit of kind of wrapping a lot of what Dr. Allen and Ariel and Cheryl have talked about with the different initiatives that have happened across campus. And a large part of that has been infrastructure building to create an inclusive campus environment by bringing together different people across campus, different offices that have expertise in these areas to ensure that the right people are at the table when we're talking about how do we create an inclusive environment for faculty, staff, students, environments, and to ensure that we're creating an action plan to continue to address things as they come up and to not be responsive to issues, but to be able to continue to create a more inclusive environment for everyone. As a faculty fellow, I've been able to work with OIE in a number of different initiatives. I actually got started with this current group with the last survey administration, where I was part of that work group who was helping determine the questions and how they were asked and how we did marketing, and involved different groups across campus to ensure that we were capturing the right data, being transparent, but also that that data wasn't just data, that data was going to be used to develop actions on our campus to create an inclusive environment. And that is led into a lot of that infrastructure building where OIE has partnered with faculty, staff, administrators, outside consultants, and others to develop initiatives in partnership that help move our campus forward, not only now, but into the future as well. And so that infrastructure building, and my own training is in public health, and one of the things that I always talk about with public health is that a well-functioning public health system is one that has the right resources, the right infrastructure, the right partners, and is one that is often working silently in the background to address issues as they arise versus being responsive to issues once they're already here. So we kind of saw that with the COVID-19 pandemic, where we didn't quite have the infrastructure we needed to adequately address COVID-19 when that pandemic happened. And so we were responsive the whole time, trying to come up with a plan that should have actually been in place. And that's what this current administration has been doing, is developing that infrastructure and that plan so that we can continue to move forward as a campus. And so there's a lot of different initiatives that are ongoing now. I can't use the keyboard. I clicked forward on the keyboard and realized that's not right. So there's a lot of different initiatives that have been talked about already, but just to highlight a few of those that you'll be able to talk to here in the room. And some, as Cheryl said, a lot of these initiatives have come directly out of the data that we're seeing and that we've gotten from the surveys and from meeting with different groups across campus to develop more professional professional development opportunities surrounding social justice and DEI and other things. And so you'll have the opportunity to talk to Allie for the 21-day challenge, to Dominique and I about the EQUIP training that we'll be rolling out sometime later this semester and into next semester, and a number of different tables across the room. So please take those opportunities to learn about the different actions that are happening on our campus and engage in them, and encourage others in your circles to also engage in them. Because what we're really trying to do is reach out to as many people on our campus to get involved in these professional development activities. Often when we go to these trainings or these events, I see the same people over and over, which is wonderful because I get to see people I love to work with and that love to do this work. But we also want to reach others that maybe we're not reaching now. And that's where all of you can help us as we move forward. So I'll hand it over to Dominique.
Right. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Hello, friends. So OIE was so kind to let me come and speak a little bit about, I'm kind of the cheerleader for surveys on campus. To reintroduce myself, my name is Dominique Harrison. I'm part of the Office of Institutional Planning and Analysis. I'm the Senior Administrator and Analyst. So surveys are in my title. It's what I do. You know, every person that has spoke has said the word survey, right? It's just a tool, everybody. It's just a tool. It's a tool because we want to know what the campus thinks. We want to know your thoughts, your experiences, because you're the pulse. We're the pulse of this campus. Students are the pulse. Well, we're also the reason why we're here. And we want to really know what people are thinking, because then that's the domino effect for the action that we see today. So important to just kind of say that, as I know a lot of times I feel like we really emphasize surveys and response rate and like, oh, we have to do it. And we want to do it because this is really just a tool to get to the experiences, the thoughts, okay? The voices. Ariel did also kind of mention our Making an Impact, and that was sort of the campaign that we did in the spring of 2021 to run the DLE and the Viewfinder surveys that we did. We now have kind of a new campaign, Voices of CSUSM. We'll be tabling at the back, so please come and speak to me a little bit more about that. So we do have our next sort of run at doing the survey again. You can see all of the action that has taken place since spring of 2021 till now. This is fall, thank you, I was gonna say spring, this is fall of 2024. And so spring, we're going to do another campus climate survey. And again, it's going to be to the students, the faculty, the staff, the administrators. So it's another campus-wide effort. Again, effort, a tool to get to your voices. We're going to launch February 18th. Make sure I said that right. And this time we're actually partnering with Rankin Climate. Sue Rankin is kind of the leader of that organization, and she is a leader in higher ed around campus climate. So we were actually fortunate enough to work out a way to kind of work with them to create an instrument for our campus. So sustainability is great because then we will have an instrument that we can use moving forward, because you're saying, oh yeah, we did DLE, oh yeah, we did Viewfinder. I think Cheryl mentioned that, you know, we didn't have one instrument, so the question wasn't asked exactly the same to different groups on campus. So this is kind of hopefully an answer to that, so that the data could be a little bit more clear and direct, right? So again, this is really a great opportunity for our campus to kind of create that instrument in partnership. And also, we have an advisory council. This is also a little bit different direction for us and something new that we're excited about as well. We mentioned a work group before, we mentioned a steering committee before, and the work group helped to vet instruments that we already were in existence, and the steering committee helped to really kind of move the administration along, thinking about how do we do the outreach, what kind of incentives. They were very instrumental. But the advisory council, that role is a little bit different, because now they're going to be actually constructing an instrument for our campus to hopefully move going forward. So just wanted to highlight those things that are a little bit different from our approach that we've done in the past, and things that we're very excited about. I will also mention the EQUIP training that Dr. Armenta talked about. again, looking at the results, something that was kind of pulled from there was other DEI training opportunities for our campus. So this is one that we identified. More than happy to kind of talk to you about what that opportunity looks like, but it is something that is going to slowly start enrolling this semester and then kind of take fully moving forward in the spring. So did anyone else want to come and talk about the other initiatives? Yes, okay, here's Dr. Allen.
I have the benefit of having such an awesome group of professionals to work with, okay? They take bright ideals and make good out of them. And so I just want to say thank you to this team. Yeah. So we're moving forward. There's a few things that I want you to know. Number one, we, all of us, are moving forward in spite of the resistance and the headwinds that are ahead. We're moving forward, okay? And we have a plan, okay? We collectively have a plan, all right? The plan is not complicated, but it's going to require all of us, all right? When this team or members from the work group come to work with you, work with us, because we want to help you do the thing that you want to do better. It's no more complicated than that. And we're going to institute structures to facilitate progress, all right? That will include goals, objectives, metrics, and accountability, people and groups, all across campus. Inclusive excellence means everybody, all right? That's what all that says. That's all it says, all right? Ariel spoke about stability in this work. My biggest contribution to CSUSM is simply being here for a while, longer than the people before me, so that these awesome people and you can have the connection to our executive cabinet and move the work forward, okay? It's not so much that the conversations that we've had are different, but they are transitioning into actions, whereas before maybe they couldn't because it was a revolving seat. It was a revolving chair, all right? We simply want to keep the momentum going. It's a shared vision, okay? I don't think there's too many people that are against inclusive excellence on this campus. And if they are, they're included too, all right? It's a shared responsibility. And because we work together, we can reap the rewards together, and that can be shared. So, remember, we have information tables. I'm going to encourage you all to at least stop and talk to each person to find out exactly what it is that they're about, what they have to offer. And you might say, well, you know, I'm not part of the APITA community, or I'm not interested in participating in Expect, Respect campaign, or I'm not Black. Why would I want to learn about the Black Faculty and Staff Association? Because we're all in this together, okay? That's why. So learn about your community members, learn about what they're doing, learn about how you can partner or support or collaborate. And with that, enjoy your lunch and enjoy the afternoon. Thank you.